The one thing I'll say about Chris, who helped to champion and lead a lot of that work, is every time he said, it's going to work in this way. You have to do A, B, and C. Just follow this roadmap. It was kind of like what Jim Shelton was saying earlier today in terms of the pragmatic advice. Whenever Chris said anything, he was always right. And it's just been fantastic to work with him. He's been the state superintendent since 2006. He's done a lot nationally as well. And we're so pleased, Chris, that you could make time today to come in and share some about the work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Roger, for that very nice introduction. It was great to see so many of the champions of the Illinois effort here. I was nervous when you said you were going to tell the stories. I wish all Illinois citizens said whenever Chris lays out a roadmap, it's right, but that's not always the case, as you know. So what I thought I would do, and best use my time, is to give you a little history and context of why the state is involved in this and tell you a little bit about how it's shaping some of our forward-going policy and policy that we've been through. And if time allows, I'd even do a couple questions if time allows for that. And I think all of you by now know there was an Illinois Public Act, the Children's Mental Health Act of 2003, and it called upon the Illinois State Board of Education to develop and implement a plan to incorporate social and emotional development standards as part of our Illinois learning standards. And this was a charge that we then set out to do and adopt and completed in 2004. And there were 10 SEL standards along with goals, age-appropriate benchmarks, and performance descriptors. We treated these just as we would our academic learning standards, for which we have all those same components. And that was incredibly helpful then for implementation. And it was a collaborative effort between the state board. The partnership was key to making this happen. It certainly would not have happened left into our own devices without a lot of good thinkers and folks who were experts in this area. And certainly with CASEL's leadership, that was incredibly fortuitous and helpful to us. So we built on these and immediately started talking about these in tandem with, as part of our Illinois Learning Standards. They are our Illinois Learning Standards. So you have, yes, we have English language arts, we have math, and we have social emotional standards. And each standard includes 5 benchmark levels, as you're probably aware, and describe what students should know and be able to do. And importantly, this is done also around the grade levels for which people would be working. So we have the grade K through 3, elementary 4 through 5, middle junior 6 through 8, and early high school 9, 10, and then late high school 11, 12. That's an important footnote that I'll get to later in terms of looking at the future and policies that we've done. So, and these were things for which there was a lot of agreement. They made sense because, and of great relief to schools who were feeling by now a lot of pressure, undue pressure from laws, federal laws like the No Child Left Behind Act, where everything was myopically focused on academics and the whole child was not being recognized. So social emotional development wasn't recognized. The career technical education components were not adequately recognized. So this allowed teachers, and I think part of what got folks motivated was this idea of looking more comprehensively at a human being, as we should, and even early on in a human being's development. And these are things, as you know, is recognizing and managing emotions, things we like to see adults do. Demonstrate caring and concern for others, also a good adult trait that we look for. Establishing positive relationships, yet another goal. And making responsible decisions and handling challenging situations constructively. So these were all things that I think were very popular to get around. And we also were thinking carefully about sites to implement and rolling this out on a gradual basis, not overall in the state with a require or mandate, which are so ever popular, but rather looking at the context in which we would start to roll this out, and support folks who did, and some metrics, because we need to be thinking about outcomes as a result of this work. So we were talking about things like promotion of mental wellness, prevention of mental health issues, school connectedness, reduction in student absenteeism, reduction in suspensions, adoption, implementation, and institutionalization of new practices, and improved academic outcomes. All of those things were outcomes that we discussed in tandem with these. So what we've seen over the years, having talked about these things, is a great influence, I think, certainly for the work we're doing in early childhood in particular, and where we're going now in terms of our kindergarten readiness survey. These very much are in the forefront of those discussions as we roll that out. We're thinking about it in terms of we're a Common Core adoption state, and we're thinking about this, and it's been helpful to instruct our rollout of Common Core standards and also teacher preparation. So we think about this constantly in terms of what are the existing systems and structures to determine how these social emotional learning efforts can be integrated. How do we integrate this into what we're doing currently? And that helps a lot in terms of the acceptance for practitioners who are going to be using these as well. And embedding them into existing curricula. How do you embed these effectively? And I know some of your presentations have been talking about that. Taking advantage of teaching moments that occur naturally throughout the day and promoting students' feeling of autonomy, relatedness, and competence, and providing opportunities for students to practice these skills. Talking a little bit just about how this is, I think, coming out years later, we've done a lot of work in Illinois around a number of things. 4 primary initiatives. One is our standards, the standards that we use and the assessments we give, and 2 around our teacher preparation and administrator preparation and the competencies we expect them to be leaving with, as well as our intervention in schools and our use of data and our systems for collecting and using data. Our underlying goal of that is to ensure that we have feedback to the state to help us guide policy by using data from districts and what we see going on across the state. And we want practitioners in school buildings to have at their fingertips data that they can use to better intervene more quickly on behalf of student learning. And our very licensure system in Illinois is evolving. We have just proposed regulations that are out for comment now. We're looking all the way down at birth now. We have a competency. We want individuals to be coming out of teacher training and administrator training institutions more ready to do the job than they have in the past. So we've expected an awful lot of our higher ed institutions. We, by the way, are an exporter state, so if you're from another state, you're likely going to be hiring our graduates eventually. And so these things are important for you to know. We wanted our teachers to come out with an understanding of these standards, just like we want our teachers to be coming out with an understanding and expectations of Common Core expectations around English language arts and math. And we have a program whereby, we of course approve programs that prepare teachers and principals. So that's now part of, and in law, that's part of what we review when we look at program approval for our institutions that are preparing our workforce. And nationally, we haven't paid enough attention to our workforce, in my opinion, around their competencies to be able to do the jobs we're asking them to do. So they need to better be able to use data. They need to have an understanding of these things, and they can't be expected to pick it all up in the first 2 years with a minimal amount of clinical experience, which every person leaving will tell you is the most important part of their training. So we've done a lot of reflection and thought, along with our higher ed institutions, about how to implement this into that system so that we can start generating practitioners who are better able to use this information to better students. Similarly, as we're thinking about what we're doing with our standards and with our data systems, in the future, we're increasingly going to be using technology. We're one of 5 states currently piloting a shared learning collaborative. Gates and Carnegie have invested a lot of money to set up and put into teachers' hands dashboards, information, standards-aligned materials that are of use. And we have to be thinking about those mechanisms. Teachers should not have to work for that information. We know and can use technology to better help all individuals to do their jobs. And guess what? We don't all have to develop this 50 times. We have states that are doing a great job. We can share information. Just as Illinois was sort of out there on social and emotional, there are other things that we're not, that we're learning from other states. We don't have to replicate this state to state. That's why I'm a big advocate for shared standards, things like the Common Core. They make sense. Our families, our students are moving from state to state all the time. And if we're going to have a receiving district pick up and serve students in a more efficient way, we should be thinking about these systems. Our state motto, state sovereignty, national union. We get it. So we want to be here part of the whole, the whole group working together on behalf of our students. We haven't done a good enough job with that in education over the years. We can certainly do better. That's why I think sharing this information also at the national level, due to your leadership, was so important, and we appreciate that while you were in Congress. That's why this message is so important to get out. So I'm going to pause there, Roger. Those were my main points I wanted to relay to you as the importance of what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we approached it. We don't have all the answers, certainly. My state, one of the joys I have of being state superintendent of Illinois is we have 868 local governing units. Imagine that. So I have, each one of them have 7 elected board members and hire a superintendent. And I have elementary districts, I have high school districts, I have unit districts. Call me crazy. I'm telling you, it's real. So you can see why it's important in states like Illinois that we help provide infrastructure. But it's not just, and this is a unique issue compared to many states, but it's one of the reasons why we think systemically like we do. We have to help a lot of varying districts with a lot of diversity and resources, and we want to make sure that this is available to them.